If you keep sabotaging things when they're going well, or you feel like you're stuck behind behaviors like people pleasing, silencing yourself, letting people break your boundaries, or you just feel like no matter how much healing you do, you're still stuck, I want you to know that you are not broken. You are being controlled by your shadow. Hi, friends. If you're new to my channel, my name is Katie, and I help women tap into their divine power, reconnect to their true selves, and build a beautiful life from the inside out. So, in this episode, I'm going to talk about what the shadow self is, why it keeps us stuck, and a framework that you can use in order to release these stuck parts of you so that you can actually go towards your dreams. So, let's talk about what the shadow is. It's a combination of wounded parts of you, unmet needs, and repressed desires. See, what happens is when we're children, we have these places where we get wounded. Maybe you had caregivers who didn't know how to actually get to know your genuine self. Maybe you were laughed at for your creative ventures and the things that you put yourself out there for. Maybe you liked to sing, but people kind of laughed at you or made you feel silly. So you learned to hide your singing voice. Maybe you got in trouble if you expressed negative emotions, so you learn to suppress your anger. So what happens is we have these authentic, true parts of us, your divine true self. And we're told in many different ways, or rather, the meaning we make from what we're told is that those parts of us are unlovable, they're unwanted. Repressed parts of us, they go down, we shove them down in the shadows, and we carry shame about those parts of us because they're the parts that we'd feel like, well, that's unacceptable parts of us. So we split off components of ourselves, and that becomes like the shadow says, they live in the shadows. Now they don't go away, they are stored deep in our subconscious. And what happens is when we go to do something, say we get a conscious desire to go and write a book, go and start a big goal, just do anything. Maybe we become people pleasers or we stay quiet, but we truly have a desire to use our voice. Or you have a lot of opinions, but you act like a people pleaser because we mask these parts of us. We build a persona to protect us. That's the mask that we wear. And beneath that persona is the shadow, those unintegrated parts of us that need to be expressed and heard, and actually are what the programs are running the show behind the scenes. And so, no matter where you are in your journey, no matter where we are going or what level we're at in our self healing journey, we have these parts that come up. And there's nothing wrong with these parts. You are not broken. And we all have these different things on our journey because we're all programmed from a very young age that certain parts of us are worthy and lovable and certain parts are not. We separate ourselves into the good parts of us and the bad. And it's not that you have good and bad parts of you. It's not that your anger is wrong. It's not that the creativity in you wasn't lovable, but it's the messages that we got from our environment that, and then the beliefs that we formed around that. See, beliefs are just meaning that we make out of these experiences. And limiting beliefs are beliefs that are not in alignment with who we truly are. But we take these limiting beliefs on and believe, well, I guess my creativity isn't worthy to be shown to the world. So I should just hide it away. Nobody wants to see it. And so we have that belief and we stack it on ourselves and it becomes our identity. And so when we are going towards dreams and we want to evolve and grow, we feel like there's this push pull inside our bodies. We can feel the resistance. We feel the self-sabotage. We feel all the critic, that inner censor coming up telling us, you can't do that in 100 different ways. We might feel like, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough to do that. Who am I to write a book? Who wants to listen to me? That's the inner critic, which is actually parts of our shadow, those inner places that we need to go in and get. And so How do we even know? How do we know what shadow parts of us are underneath the surface? How do we know what those core root beliefs that we took on are? Imagine that your best friend or someone close called you and said, "Oh my God, so and so just called me," and you wouldn't believe what they said about you. In that moment, what comes up for me is like that pit of like shame and anxiety in my stomach, thinking, "What do you mean? What did they say about me?" And for me, when I did this exercise, the first thing that came up for me was, I said something wrong. I said something that wasn't right, because I had this like part of me forever that was afraid of being wrong, afraid of speaking up and then being wrong. And so it's a good exercise to help you figure out like what's stuck underneath there. Are you afraid of saying an opinion and not feeling loved or feeling rejected for it? Are you afraid of expressing yourself in the way you dress and just the way you present yourself to the world because you're afraid of what people will say or think? There's some part of you that needs to be seen. It's the wounded inner child within. And so our work to bring these parts of us back to integrate is to become our own loving parent. That is our work. We have to go into that shadow and become the loving parent to bring those parts of us back so that we don't have to live in shame and we don't feel this push and pull. Because when we have a desire to do something, our conscious mind says, yeah, totally, I want to go after that dream. But then we can't figure out why. No matter what we do, we feel like we're just like, it stops and starts and it just doesn't feel good. It's because that shadow part of you, those places inside, have other goals. And those goals are just to keep you safe from being abandoned and rejected and not feeling loved. So there's a four-step framework here that I'm going to give you that's really been helpful for me on this journey to go in and face these parts of myself. The first step is to become aware of your triggers. See, triggers are really the key to your freedom. Triggers are like the inroad into the subconscious, because when something triggers you, our first inclination is to feel like a victim, to feel like something out there made me feel a certain way. But really, what the trigger is it's something out there that poked a wound that's already present. And so the first part of this work is really becoming conscious of parts of us that still hurt. And that requires, in those moments where you're just getting something coming up, maybe someone didn't text you back right away. Maybe you feel a little bit rejected by a situation. Maybe your partner didn't respond in a way that was making you feel safe emotionally. There's something there, that uncomfortable feeling, that bit of shame, that anxiety that comes up. That negative emotion is like a beacon saying, there's a wound here that needs to be looked at. So, step two is leaning in to that shadow, leaning into that unheard place, and going in and becoming the inner parent to sit with that part of you like you would a child, and allowing that part of you to speak and asking yourself some good questions like, what's the story here? When was the first time you felt this way? Why don't why aren't you good enough? And these sound like funny questions, but what we are doing is really getting to the rooted why. We often will say, I don't know why I feel that way. And we don't actually keep going down to to the depths of it. But the truth is, there is a core story you're believing about yourself. That's the background program running your life. And if you just keep asking yourself, why, why aren't you good enough? And as you keep going, it's like pulling off one layer at a time until you get to that core place. And typically, it's some part of our childhood. Often what happens is we'll get triggered and we'll say, I don't know why this is happening. And we'll land on, I don't know why. And we won't really go deeper. But your deep subconscious mind, that deep part of you knows the answer, and they want to express it. And if you get quiet enough and you just begin asking yourselves these questions, like, why aren't you good enough? Why am I not good enough? Why can't I write a book? Why don't I finish things? Because if we listen, that part of you will speak to you, that higher self within you. And step three is where we actually meet that wounded part of us. And this is the part where you get to become the loving inner parent. And I learned this years ago in 12 steps. The idea that we all have wounded parts in us, the wounded child within, that part of you as a child that had to be hidden away, that's quietly sabotaging behind the scenes. Not because she's mean or cruel or evil, but just because she didn't get her needs met and she wants to feel heard. And all parts of you want to be authentic. And so you get to become the inner loving parent, and you get to go in there and sit with her and allow her to speak. Maybe she never got to express anger. Maybe she never got to say all those raw, ugly things that she felt as a child and she wasn't allowed to say. And you let her say it. You meet her there with compassion and grace and let her know that she can say anything she needs to say. And there is no shame in sharing her opinion. And you begin to show her that it is safe for her to come out of the shadows. And it's like you going in. What I often do is I will sit and bring up the core memory. I will sit there with myself, even if I have to meditate, I do journaling and just like free writing until some core memory. And I picture myself as that little girl sitting there. For me, a lot of my memories were being physically left alone for long periods of time. So I have a lot of my healing is me reparenting myself, going back into my childhood room, taking that little girl in my arms and telling her that she's so worthy to be heard, that what she has to say is important. And that is a way that I bring that shadow part of me back. That part of you doesn't need to be fixed. It just needs to be expressed and allowed to come back and integrate back into you. And that's how we return to our authentic selves. And that's how we are able to then, in step 4, we're integrated by taking action. Those deepest wounds within you are actually the road to your calling. I've found that in my life. My fear of visibility, my fear of speaking, my fear of sharing who I truly am, all those were some of the deepest wounded parts of me that I repressed. This is the most important part because we have to take action to show that part of us, those parts of us that we felt weren't worthy, that part of ourselves was always worthy. And I like to say it's like letting all the girls come to the cafeteria table, because if you don't allow all parts of you to come to the table, you cannot live as your authentic self. So you cannot fulfill your deepest soul calling and the dreams that you have within you. You invite all those girlies to the table, every single part of you, and you let her know you're allowed to be here, you're allowed to be here, you're allowed to be here. Whatever desire you have, whatever need you have, however, whatever emotion you feel, everybody's allowed to be here and everybody has the worthiness to be heard. And that's full integration. And that's how we begin to pull the mask off and we become our true self. And we give ourselves what we needed as the inner parents. When you start feeling triggered, take some time every day to monitor what negative emotions are coming up for you, because that'll tell you where it's poking at some wounds. And typically, a lot of times, it's our kids, our partners, just different people we're in close relationship with can tend to poke at that wound. So I hope this helped you, and I hope you got a little bit more understanding of the shadow work. I'm still on this journey and learning a ton of it myself, doing this healing work in myself. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.